Hi there, welcome to my channel. In this new video, we will be learning how to send a password expiring notification for your all the end users. So this lecture is going to focus on Azure AD based users, or you call it as the Office 365 mailboxes. We will send a automated email notification so that they can change their email ID's password. And the reason why we have to do a customization is Microsoft has removed, as part of the cybersecurity recommendation, they removed this automated email notification mechanism within their product. So now we have to customize ourselves. That's where we have to write a custom script. So I have written already a custom script which is already available within this video description as well as in my blog post. You should be able to find out within the video description. Okay, that being said, you definitely need the pre-requirements like a PowerShell. ISE should be there so that you can work with this PowerShell script. And also where you're going to test it, you need to have the Microsoft Graph PowerShell SDK must be installed. I'm going to show you how to do that, and also try to create a shared mailbox so that it can use that email ID as a sender email ID, and it can send the emails. So having the shared mailbox will help you. You don't need to depend on your SMTP relay, all of that complex configurations. Simply use a shared mailbox which does not require even a license also, so it's a free of cost. And these are the three I would say pre-requirements that you need to have, like PowerShell and Microsoft Graph PowerShell SDK and shared mailbox. Then let's jump into the structure. So the first structure would be the for achieving this, you need to have an application, web application to be created, and that web application will be used in terms of sending an email and querying to all the users and their attributes like password expiry information. So for that you need to grant the permissions. Then we would use the script to query to that web application and perform the required changes. So that being said, let's actually start to create as a first step web application. So the web applications can be created from Azure AD. So that's where I clicked on the web applications, and then within the Azure Active Directory you can click on app registration. So this is where you're going to create a new registration of the application. So in my case, I'm going to call this as the Office 365 password expiry notification. So I'll just type it here by clicking on that new registration, and I would choose all the defaults in this case. But if you look at on the redirect URI, I would be giving it's a web-based, because we are going to query to the web-based, and here we would be giving as a local host. So I'll simply type as a local host. If you learn out of this video, subscribe to this channel. Subscribing won't cost you a coin, but it has extreme value to me. Subscribing may seem very small to you, but its impact is more on me. It's a vote of confidence that keeps me excited about creating more fresh, insightful content when you subscribe. Subscribing is a win-win situation. You ask any question or post any questions in the comments. As a new thread, you would be getting within 10 minutes a response back. Your support means the world to me. Thank you. Subscribe and click on register. Now what happens is we are actually creating a web application with a name called Office 365 password expiration notification. This is called the web application. This web application will have a couple of things like your application ID, and also so that's application ID. So I'll just copy this because we need these details as part of a script. So I'd simply make this to be written in the right format. And also I need to have the directory tenant information. So I'll copy that. I'll keep it in my notepad. And post to this, we also need to have this secrets. But before that, before really going into that, you need to work with the app permissions. So within this API, if you look at here, within this there is only read permissions, all of that. So what we have to do is we have to grant a permissions by adding a permission. So I'll just simply click on add, and then it actually comes what is that you're going to use the API. So in this case, we are going to use the Microsoft Graph API. So when as soon as you click on permissions, you would be getting as a Microsoft Graph API. So click on that and then choose application permissions. And within this, you can search for a couple of things, like you can go for the user, just scroll down with the alphabetical order, or you can type it as a user dot read or read dot all. Let me actually expand everything and go back to the alphabetical order, because I'm looking for a user dot read dot all. So scroll down completely, and then I'll get it here as a user. So I need to select read all, which consists of full profile information. And also, if I just scroll up to the D letter, domain.read all, maybe C, and then we can go back to the D domain. Under this, read domains. So that's a read domain all. Now, if you no need to actually search like this, you can actually go back to the top and find like mail.send. That would actually list it. So let me show you that, instead of you find out here, like, I'm not able to get it here under mail dot send. Instead, mail dot read is there, mail dot read basic is there, mail dot read dot write is there. So let me actually go back here and type mail dot send. So I got this specific information, then select it and click on add permission. So what would happen is, now I got all these has been added here for my Graph API permissions, but I do not have a permissions. If you see here, I do not have any kind of permissions. So all I have to do is I need to grant consent for my domain or my tenant. So in this case, this is my tenant, right? So let me grant permission for my exchange or for my tenant level for this web application. So meaning this web application can go and read all the users, or it can send even mail. Entire domain can be read, sign in and read their user profile. All that information can be queried by using the Graph API. Think about security point of view also when you're trying to create this. So let's click on grant admin consent for Paddy as a tenant. So now everything gets here. If you notice, it becomes as the green in a minute. So you see here, all that got green along with the S options as it is. So now it's good. Now it's time for us to upload a certificate, because as I just told earlier, working with this web application can send email, can read all the users details. So and it can also send us email of any user also, so which is risky, I would say, right? So we need to actually create an application secret and a certificate. So what I would do is I would actually create a certificate. In this case, you could actually create a self certificate by opening to the PowerShell. I would also upload this script, the script that you could actually use it. So in my case, I wanted to change the directory to C:\scripts, because that's where I'm going to save this script, because once I execute this script, which I'm going to share with you in a couple of minutes, it actually going to save into the scripts folder. So in my case, I wanted to have something called a scripts1 or maybe scripts, and I would like to change the directory also in my PowerShell execution environment to C:\scripts. And let me paste the script here, which I'm referring here, which talks about the self-signed certificate. So this is going to generate a self-signed certificate. If you just go through it, it's a couple of lines code, close to 15 lines. That's it. You simply execute. That's gonna create within that location. So if you look at a certificate under my user context, it's gonna install the certificate, and that's where it's going to generate the certificate. .csr file gets generated within the current folder, which is the C:\scripts folder in this case. So let's execute this. Once we have the script is generated, now as you can see, the script has generated. Now it's time for us to actually upload the script web application. So let's go to the web application, click on secrets and certificates. We're going to create secrets, all of that later point, but let's first actually go to the certificate, and upload the certificate. So by uploading this certificate, we actually get the thumb impression or thumbprint we call it. So let me go to C:\scripts. Within this, I have a script. The certificate file is there, which we just created, right? With the PowerShell. So open up that. You can, if you want, you can give the description, meaningful description. But in my case, I'm not going to give anything. Just click on Add. Once you click on Add, it will upload and it generates a thumbprint information. Now, what all the information we have is we have a web application, we have a thumbprint, we also granted for web application the permissions for REST API. It's time for us to check whether this web application is working as expected. When I say as expected, it should go and read all the user profiles, and it should be able to send as an email, all of that kind of information, right? So this can be done with a PowerShell first, just to test it. Later point, I would be sharing the actual script. But before that, let's verify whether whatever we have so far done, can we connect with Microsoft Graph or not? So that's what I'm gonna test it. So I would copy this thumbprint information also to my notepad so that I can work on it. Now it's time for us also for creating the client secret, which I forgot to explain. So let's click on the client secret and give any kind of description. For example, you can give as a key 1 or key 2, and then simply choose the expiry date. So this is going to be a test in my case, but in your case, if it is a production, give at least 2 years or 1 year timeline. But in my case, I'm just giving 3 months because it's just the test for me at the end. Right, so I have to delete it, otherwise it would query for my entire tenant, right? So it's a super secret, all these values, so you never share the secret ID or the value of this with anybody, okay? Because there's a highly risk involved. As I said, it's a security threat also to the entire tenant. So I will definitely save this also in my notepad, and then I would copy paste the required information to the PowerShell script whenever I need it. But before that, I actually have to, in the backend, I would definitely copy it, but I wanted to explain to you now how do we install the Microsoft Graph. Just in case if you do not have a Microsoft Graph, you might have to install Microsoft Graph for the current user or for all the users. So because you're going to connect to this web application with the graph. So let me open up a new PowerShell. Let me save this so that I can save with you, or put it in the same folder, maybe in scripts. You can expect this file within this video description. So I would be opening this. So for installation, Microsoft Graph. So this is the command that you're going to use, like install -module or Microsoft Graph for scoping for all users. So this might take anywhere 5 minutes, or depends on your internet speed, and in between it just asks just like this to are you going to really trust this, because it's going to install from PowerShell repository, which is publicly available. So it just connect to that, and then it will download and install all these required modules. So in my case, it took close to 3 minutes time because of poor internet connectivity that I have, seems to be today. So I would definitely wait for a second to finish this installation. So this has been successfully installed. Now the module, let me find out whether it is actually installed. If so, what is the module version? So you can see if I use a get install module Microsoft Graph, it's actually showing it got installed from a repository called PS Gallery. So now all looks good. These are the one of the pre-requirement we have explained in the beginning of this video lecture. So we have now PowerShell script. Let's move forward by writing the PowerShell script. But before that, let's also go back to the one of the other pre-requirement, like creating a shared mailbox. So let me open up the admin.microsoft.com /exchange online. You can go to all admins portal and click on exchange, or you could actually even create it from directly from the mailboxes. So simply click on mailboxes and click on add shared mailboxes. Give a meaningful name that you wanted to have it as a test case. So this can be like, in my case, I'm just giving here as a mail send. So what would happen is the mail send at memcourse.com is going to be my domain mail ID. So with this email ID, I should be able to send an email saying that, hey, your password is going to expire. That's what I'm trying to do it, instead of I use some kind of an SMTP or the email ID and password. I would be depending on this web application. That's the idea. So this web application is almost replacing my previous requirements which I used to have in the past. That's the idea. So now in this case, the mail send account got created. So now if you remember the pre-requirements which we talked about, the PowerShell ISC, we have the latest ISC, the PowerShell script, and also REST API. That's a Graph API specific PowerShell module also there. Now we also have the user account, that's a shared mailbox account is there. Now it's time for us to check whether we can actually connect it. So this is not the final script, my friends, which I'm going to show you, because if you want to modify, you can use the script way to modify what all the content. It can be easy for you. That's why I wanted to explain here the script, at least the beginning. So within this script, as you can see, read all, mail send, domain all. So, and I need to replace here my client ID and credentials that you could find out within this web application. Mostly, if you just go to the overview, whatever the required information we are talking about, except the secret ID or the token information or the certificate thumb impression, everything will be available, and the rest of the things would be you should be able to find out in the certificates and secrets. So in this case, I should be able to copy my client ID, or else if you have already saved in your notepad, you could actually get it. Or if you are looking for the tenant ID, in fact, it's also available within that web page. But just in case if you're not sure, you can also always get it from a Azure Active Directory point of view. This is your tenant ID if you just open up Azure Active Directory. And this information needs to be replaced here, like in a tenant ID. Now it's time for us to replace the client secret credentials that you could get it from your certificate. After testing this entire script or end of this video, I would be definitely deleting all this, because I'm sharing all the client secret details, all of that, confidential data. So now for the certificate based testing also needs to be done, like thumb print and client ID information to be given here. So this is a client ID and that's the tenant ID information. So we'll just copy that tenant ID information which we have earlier copied in this script. And thumbprint. So let me go back to the thumbprint. So you can go back to other tab which I opened. This is where you have the thumbprint and copy, because in the past we also copied secret ID. This is the thumbprint which is in a certificate. So let's copy that thumbprint from a certificate, give that value. So we have all the required information. Now let's test it one by one. So I would like to connect to the graph. So when I try to connect, it would definitely ask for the user ID and the password because this is the first time I'm trying to connect, and it's not with the client secret ID which I'm testing, just the in general scope. So it would definitely ask, because I did not mention anywhere the tenant ID or client ID, because the line number 7 which I'm testing, right? So let me enter here user ID and the password, give the consent, click on accept. So that's how it's going to connect it, right? So this is in general how do you connect it. Now it's time for us to test with the tenant ID information and client secret ID. So let's execute this. So there are some errors. Okay, if you see here, it's not able to convert that credential ID. So let me modify that. Let me create this script completely to convert. So I need to put these values here as a store, as a variable, and then use the conversion string conversion, and then connect it with the tenant ID and the credentials. This time it should connect it. So you see here it's connected. Now it's time for us to test it with the client ID and certificate. So it's also querying all the required information. So it's good, right? It's really good that it is actually querying. That means the script is going to work if you have written based on the specific web application. So far what we have done is we created a web application. We tried to test it with the PowerShell script, whether can we actually retrieve the information from that web application or not. And if you see here, I actually executed get mg context. This is going to actually retrieve the information about the complete web application. So in this case, it's going to expire at what date, all of that. So I would definitely add this also, just in case if you want to, retrieve the information for this web application. You can always retrieve by using this command. So that's a command which I would save it within the script, which I'm going to share with you later point. If you just want to, you can execute. Now you can see here little further script also I've written just to retrieve whether what kind of users are gonna available. So in this case, I am actually storing the get mg domain with a where object password validity period in days with a value in the number of days, which I have mentioned as a 90 days. Just in case if a password period is a 90, that's what I'm gonna set it. But in my tenant, I have configured as a 60 days. So in my script, which I'm gonna write up, I would make the script to work anywhere 90 and above. If the user is configured more than 90 days, still not working, then we would be using. So this is where the actual script starts. So from here the actual script starts. So I would be sharing the same script with you. So this is where the script. So I wanted to configure here as a 60 and 10. Even you could see 60 and 0. Sorry, not 10, 0. Meaning 0 days means from today, and 60 is 60 days. So that means the password notification window or the email which will be delivered on these days: 60 days before, 31 days before, 17, 14, 10, 5, 3, 1. On the same day, it's gonna send them as an email saying that, hey, your password is gonna expire. So that's what this window which you need to configure. And the second thing is a sender email address, which is in this case mail sent at mydomain.com. If you remember in the beginning we talked about having a shared mailbox. So this is the shared mailbox which we created in the past. So I would be using the shared mailbox. So you could change it if you want to something else based on your requirement. So that's the email ID which is going to used to send an email, and the rest of the part is the same. If you remember, we did actually worked here this script. The same script is going to come up here, and then it's going to work what we are looking. So in my case, that's the same script, and now retrieving the password, and then I'm going to validate with the older days by setting up the value or validating. So let me execute this entire script. So this block I'm executing just for testing to see if there are any errors. No errors. So let me also look at the domain. So if I look at the domain, my domain is configured with the 60 days, even though if it was not configured, it is going to set it to 90 days. Okay, if I execute the next block, it's going to say it's going to actually saving under user. So you see here Megan, Run, all these guys password is going to actually expire because these are the 2022. This is the year 2023. So almost a year back this password was used, so it might be already expired, right? So they need to get an email. That's what we are trying to achieve, so that they can use it just in case if they are trying to log in. So I'm going to execute other properties to retrieve max password age, and now the time equivalent to get time. So you don't need to perform all these steps. Okay, I'm just trying to explain. For example, if you look at these values, the password was expiring date was compared with the 1970s. Oops, there is a bracket was missing. So let's actually execute the entire for loop. It was successful, and if I just go and check only the users, I would be getting the display name for a different user who needs to change the password. So this is just the executing. So let me execute all at once. So you can see that if I execute all at once, it's actually showing here this user, when it's going to expire. So please, we need to send these emails to all these people. So sending password expiration notice. So all these users will receive an email. So that's the idea. Okay, if you see here, I received an email saying that, hey, your password will expire in 60 days, because I mentioned as a 60 also within that script. That's why it is actually coming up. And this entire body also can be customized within your script, which was there within the script. So it's easy another way to modify and use the script. So as you can see, run user account was listed here, and since we mentioned as a 0, it is actually showing as a 0 days within the script. I hope you like this video. If you have any questions, you can always comment in the comment section. Thank you for watching this. If you learn out of this video, subscribe to this channel. Subscribing won't cost you a coin, but it has extreme value to me. Subscribing may seem very small to you, but its impact is more on me. It's a vote of confidence that keeps me excited about creating more fresh, insightful content when you subscribe. Subscribing is a win-win situation. You ask any question or post any questions in the comments. As a new thread, you would be getting within 10 minutes a response back. Your support means the world to me. Thank you. Subscribe.